this question actually you can take control of the interview.
When somebody shows up for the interview, what are the some 2-3 things that you assess right away even before interviewing them?
It's always better to say that I'm sorry, but I'm not aware of it, or I need a little more time. In weightage category, if you see, it would be about 10% in the whole interview. But sometimes it can color the other assessments also.
What, apart from reading newspaper daily, what did you do to keep yourself relevant and abreast of the current situations in the country?
Why MBA? Like just as I said before, you have to have clarity where you're going.
I always treat any interview as a conversation and not an interview.
MBA interviews are final and perhaps the most crucial step in securing admissions to your dream business school. But what exactly happens in these interviews? What do these B schools look for future MBA candidate? What is that something that you can do to ace these interviews? In today's video, we have Dr. Purnima Gupta, who has been the panelist for many such interviews and is also the PGDM director at Weightage Gurgaon. And we have Aanchal and Virat, who are two brilliant students who have navigated the MBA admissions interview at Weightage Gurgaon. Let's dive in and understand the secrets of cracking MBA admissions interviews. Ma'am, I'd like to start with you first. So, you have been on the panel for many such interviews, and you being the PGDM director for Weightage Gurgaon, why do you think MBA interviews are such a crucial step in the admissions process?
So MBA is not just academic scores. MBA is a holistic managerial aptitude that we are testing, which as of now we have not been able to perfect any scoring. So we did try once to eliminate the percentage of the interviews, but we felt that unless we meet the students and ask them about their motivations, their interest in why they want to pursue the course, that becomes a very important aspect of selecting the students.
And while these interviews can be nerve-wracking, but you still have a hope, or I would say ki you still have a chance to showcase your potential which you couldn't show through your application. So maybe one of you can answer, what did you do to prepare for such interviews and what was your preparation strategy like?
I would like to answer that. I guess it was like just a normal preparation strategy. I used to get up every morning, read newspaper, go through ET. Like I'm a person who is also a finance guy. I used to look at the markets every day. So I get to know like what's happening in the market. And that was the GK and current affairs for me. And as I was preparing, I used to give mock interviews. And I would say that's the best strategy, that's the best thing you could do is giving mock interviews. And when you're giving mock interviews, try to find out what the mistakes you are doing and just reiterate those interviews, try to find out the mistakes, correct those mistakes, then again give interviews. I think that's the best preparation strategy you can have, iterating those mock interviews.
Okay. So you give your at least 90% of your information in your application form, right? Be it academics or be it extracurriculars or whatever you have done in the past, be it your past experience. What is that extra thing that you prepare for an interview, that this is my potential is and this is something which I can, only present physically when I'm sitting in front of someone to maybe impress them? So maybe you can answer that.
Yeah. So according to me, it is very important for you to present your personal narrative to the whomsoever the interviewer is, because your basic details will be there in your resume. But what you bring to the table according to the goals and mission of the college that you are applying for or any company that you are applying for, you have to align your professional and personal experience with those goals so that you can form your stories based on those.
I would like to add on that it's not just about your resume, your CV, or application. It's all about what kind of a person you are. It's not about just your application form. You should know how to storytell your life. Because as I said that I'm a person who is into markets. I don't have a degree for that. I don't have numbers. I don't have certificates to prove that. But what kind of person I have? I worked in NGOs, let's say. I don't have certificates for that. I have my NGOs. That's the things I need to tell as a person when I'm giving interviews. And I believe that we write things that are okay, but it's more about the clarity of thoughts. Where are you coming from? Where are you going? Who are you now? I believe that those clarity of thoughts are the most important things which could be checked only in interviews.
All right. And how was your personal interview like?
So It started with just like a normal interview, like tell me about yourself. I told them, I basically use the approach of present, past, future. I use my present things, what I'm doing now, what I've done in the past, and what was the future. There I used recency bias. And then they asked me about like where I'm from. I'm from Meerut, so they asked me lot of questions about from my states, from my city. Then it was like, why MBA? Like just as I said before, you have to have clarity where you're going. Like why MBA and why particularly Great Lakes or the college you are selecting. You should be very clear and clarity of thoughts like where are you going and where you should be. And then a lot of more questions about my personal stuff. And like I'm interested in finance, like you're involved in markets, tell me about some strategies, tell me what a difficult situation you handled. Like all of these questions were there in the interview.
Okay. Ma'am, are you aligned with what he said? And since when you are on the panel, you are interviewing probably more than 100 students in a day, right? So what is that thing that you look for? Because most students' answer will be, more or less same. So what is that one thing that you look for in a student, or what does B schools look for in a student that this is my candidate and I want this candidate?
So first of all, we don't interview 100 students in a day. Like as a panelist, we at most we do maybe 15 to 16 in a day. But as you rightly said, every individual is different, and therefore whatever we have on the resume may be a cookie cutter kind of a thing that we have. But when we interview a student, then at that time we are talking about that what is it that has led him to be here today? What are his aspirations? How is he being able to take interest in things apart from just pure academics? So like he said, talking about the city or the state, so we try to understand, okay, he's been staying someplace, does he know much about it, has he been taking interest? Because as a business student we feel that being aware of an environment is very important, and therefore definitely news, your current affairs, as well as interest in the surroundings, the state that you're in, your area in which you want to pursue. If you have some clarity, although we don't expect every student to have a very sure clarity of, like he said, finance, we don't expect students to be very well prepared about that, but yes, they should have some idea that what, because it's a postgraduate course, it's not a graduate course, so all students are adults 21 plus, so we expect to have some kind of clarity about what they want to do in the future.
And what are the top 3 metrics that you look for in an MBA candidate while you're interviewing them for the admissions process?
One is definitely motivation. Why does he want to pursue? It's not a key to just having a fast track to career. So we want to see that is he really aware of what exactly MBA involves, because it's a lot of hard work. So is he prepared to take that? The attitude, the learning attitude. Does he have that attitude to learn? That he's willing to change, he's willing to put in that effort, and that's what we check when we talk about that. Has he prepared for the interview? Because that we can see that if somebody just gets up and comes, okay, let me see how I fare, we don't want that kind of a student. We want to see, has he put in some effort, has he gone through a website, has he read about the institute, does he know, or he's just like, just because he got a call, he's appeared there. So we look at that. So one is motivation, the other is learning aptitude, and again the most, I would say, not exactly the most important thing, but the energy. Does the person has that passion to be there? Does he really want to do it? So that's something, and in fact, most of our comments for rejecting students would be lack of energy.
Lack of energy. And how do we exactly test that? What is the answer that you're expecting?
So, so there are no right or wrong answers. Exactly. Actually, there are no right or wrong answers. But the way you present, somebody is okay. How right? I've done this. This is okay. I'm doing this. You ask. They're not forthcoming. They're not proactive. They don't have much to say about. Like for example, somebody says that in my hobbies they have written reading. Now, when you ask them about, okay, what books you have read, they're blank. So that means that they've just said that because they have to just fill in some kind of a blank on it, but they have not really prepared about it. So they're not passionate. So if somebody says hobby, it could be not academically, it could be something like somebody says, I love cooking. So that person should be able to answer that, explain that. It should show that passion, because hobby is a passion. Hobby is not something you do it just because somebody's asked you to do. So if you're not able to explain your hobby in a passionate manner, that means that you don't have passion for able to pursue the course in MBA.
Makes sense, makes sense. And while you're interviewing, I'm sure there must be differences in answer in terms of students who are coming up with some experience and students who are freshers. So my question would be, how's the interview process or approach to these interviews like? And I would also would want to go to you guys to ask about your personal experience, because you are a fresher and you are coming with some experience. So maybe you can start first.
So when we have a different approach to, again, experienced students as well as freshers, because experienced students have had some corporate life. So we focus more on what challenges they have faced and how they have overcome those challenges, and and are they able to explain what they have been doing. So we try to understand that are they able to comprehend or communicate properly. So there the communication. So when we say communication, we're not talking about how well you're able to speak English. That's not the only communication we're looking for. So what we look for is, are you able to communicate what you have been doing in a proper manner? So for example, the person who's worked for a couple of years or a year or so, we ask them, okay, what is your, like, what did you do or what did you learn? So they talk about that, their contributions, not just, okay, I learned this, I learned, because we're not interested in what you learned, what we are interested in, how you contributed. And if they're able to put that in that context, then that means that they have understood the task well. For the freshers, we look for, okay, in your academic, in your undergrad, what all kind of challenges you face again in terms of group work, teamwork, because a lot of students say that their strength is working in teams, but they don't understand what it means. So we ask them about what are the challenges you faced, working with organizing events or working in some projects. So we focus more on their academic journey there, but for the experienced students, we focus more on their experiences.
Okay, and which one do you feel is more challenging, assessing the one who's coming with some professional experience or assessing freshers?
So it's again a mixed bag. So there are some professionals who are very, very good. Some are not able to explain at all. Again, it depends upon their experience also, like from what field. Some people are coming, like some experiences could be working in a shop. Some could be working in a consulting company. So obviously there's a difference in the way they communicate also. For the freshers, some people are really prepared. Maybe they have gone through coaching classes, etc. So they are aware of what all questions to be asked. Like, for example, tell me about yourself. So they talk about, in the sense of, when we say tell me about yourself, we are not expecting them to answer questions like, okay, I did my graduation from here, because that is all there in your form. So we expect them to answer something where this is a opportunity for them to add something which is not there in the form. So that's what we are looking for, that in tell me about yourself, how you are able to accomplish something, your strength which you want us to know, because that's a chance where you can put your
And that's your first impression that you're gonna.
first impression, that has he been able to add something to the value. Because a lot of students start with, okay, my name is so and so, and I'm from this place, I belong to this place, and I've done my graduation this. All that we know, it's there in the form. So what we're expecting is that what makes you different.
Right. That should be a very thoughtful answer.
That's something that people should be really prepared for, because that's something where, because we might not ask you what your strength would be. Some people ask, okay, what is strengths and weaknesses, but not every interviewer asks that. So this is an opportunity to not miss that. This is an opportunity where you can actually guide the interview, because if you say something interesting, the interviewer will start asking questions on that. So you are able to guide the interviewer into the line that you are interested in.
Makes sense. And this is the question I think most students take very lightly, and the most ignored question, that this is just something about myself and I can easily answer that.
So this question, actually, you can take control of the interview.
Right, right. And what about you, Anchal? You are coming with how many years of experience you are coming with?
1 year, almost 1 year.
Almost 1 year of experience. So what was your interview like? What sort of questions did you encounter?
So the major part of the questions that I faced was, what challenges did you face in the experience that you had? So in those scenarios, I used to come up with the problems that I have faced, as I have interacted with various clients while working under an advertising agency. So we have faced a lot of problems under teams, and basically they ask you if you can be a good leader or not, or if you're a leader or you're a team player. So those questions were aligned on the basis of the situations that you have faced and how you dealt with the situations. And I preferred a star approach in explaining how I dealt with the different tasks that I faced, and what problem oriented solutions that I gave to as a part of the team.
As I said before, the questions were the same. But as a fresher, like, we always feel that we are in a disadvantageous position. We don't have a vocex, and the questions just go beyond like what our imagination is. Like, in one of the interviews, I was asked, right, if we are going from a port 1 to port 2 in India, what were the particular state that would come in? So we always feel that disadvantaged position, that what sort of questions came, we don't know, because we don't have so many questions to be answered, as we don't have work ex, we're just a fresher who is graduated, especially from a COVID batch. We are expected to do a lot of things, so we always feel that. And a question like always occur, like, if we are fresher, how will you cope up or compete with those students who have work ex? Now, every time I have that question, I just answer it with enthusiasm. Like what we have, as ma'am said, that how you can fill that gap is through energy. You can we will you'll show enthusiasm, you'll show a participative nature, you show inclusive nature.
Did you guys face any challenge or any question that was stuck on during the interview? Anything that you thought ki this is out of the box and I may not be able to answer that? And how did you overcome that?
In one of my interviews, like besides that port question, I was asked about like in UN, like what are the particular policies you have, how to handle social media, what are the norms for that. As I said, like these kind of questions, unexpected questions, especially for freshers, they don't have work you don't know how to answer them. It's like and one of like besides sport, I was also asked about the election, political things. It's like I'm saying that I'm a finance person, and when these questions come of politics and all, I don't have any answers for that.
But these must be general awareness questions, right?
There is that general awareness, but they come in a very expected like ball, and you don't know how to answer them. You will feel that you'll think that I'll get general awareness questions from finance. That if you're from marketing, you'll get questions from marketing. But it doesn't happen always like that. So you have to be prepared and like see what is happening and what is happening not. Like as ma'am said, you have to be aware about like what is happening in your environment. It is very important.
Okay.
So, according to me, some technical questions can be challenging, and abstract questions can also be challenging. But a calm mindset to deal with it and showing the interviewer that you are aware about things is very important. I have dealt with such questions as well, but you have to have a calm mindset and properly structuring your answer, giving your honest opinions about it can be a way to.
Any example from your, experience, personal experience that you would like to share?
So, as I have done bachelor's in arts in psychology and political science, I also had economics as my minor subject. And in one of the interviews, I mentioned that I had economics. So the whole interview went around specifically economics, and that was my minor. So I wasn't aware about the technical terms. So they kept asking me the technical terms, and I tried to align those terms with the industry examples, and that is how I was able to ace that interview because I aligned those industry examples with the technical terms. I didn't give them the accurate definitions, but I related them with examples.
Nice, nice. And ma'am, when somebody shows up for the interview, what are the some 2 3 things that you assess right away even before interviewing them?
One is definitely appearance. So appearance means well groomed, the dress. So dress, we're not expecting them to wear suits with tie and all that, but yeah, we don't expect them to turn up in t-shirt and jeans also. And we have had cases where students have turned up in t-shirts and jeans. And we have co-panelists who are from the industry, and their first comment is that this guy is not serious. Because if we can't make an effort to dress up properly for an interview, then we don't know how much serious he would be for the course. So that is first no that we don't know who the interviewer is going to be, and therefore it's always best to have to be on your best dressed, which is formal dress. So that is one we expect. The other is that normally we get to see sometimes students are nervous, we can see, and it's expected. So we don't hold it against them. That nervousness shows that okay, that person is keen to get in, and therefore that person is nervous. So we try to make them feel a little comfortable. And this tell me about yourself is a way of making them feel comfortable because that's something everybody can answer. And again, we don't always expect students to answer all the questions. And that's also we see that are they fibbing? Are they trying to take us around for a ride? There are sometimes we do get students who talk a lot but they don't make sense. And after maybe 20 years of interviewing, we get to know immediately whether the person really knows the answer or just trying to show as if that person knows. So one suggestion would definitely would be if you don't know, it's no problem in saying that okay, you're not aware of it. Right? Admit it. At least it shows that you're not trying to lie about it. Or, unless you are able to, like she said, that if you don't understand terms but you are able to relate it, that means that she understands. Right? But sometimes some students, what they try to do is they try to say things which do not make sense at all. So rather than doing that, it's much better to just admit that okay, you're not aware of it. And as you said, that sometimes we do ask questions about the general awareness, like politics. Now, politics is sometimes we will feel that it's not our area. I'm in finance or I'm in marketing, so what should I understand politics about? But what we are trying to emphasize is that business involves everything, and politics actually becomes a big part of it. And as we have seen in the recent past, like the whole elections and all these can derail the whole economy. So everything is revolved around it. So we can't get away from it. and therefore we have to show interest. So we try to see whether the student, and it's not, we don't ask about particular things about politics, but what is being in the general news or any other thing which is in the general news. So what we are expecting is the student should be reading the newspaper every day, at least the headlines every day, because if they do that, they should be able to answer most of the questions. And not just a couple of days before the interview, a couple of months they should start reading.
And how do you ensure that these students, showcase these qualities during the interview? How do you make them comfortable?
So we try to ask them questions initially from the area of comfort. So we sometimes, like me personally, I ask them, okay, if I'm talking about academics, I ask them, okay, what was your favorite subject? And then if somebody says, okay, this subject, then we try to answer them questions from that, especially if it's a fresher, because then for them academics is not that far off. And so that we hope that they will become a little comfortable. We ask them about their hobbies. Again, these are something which we feel that they should be able to speak well about. And once they get into the comfort zone, then they are able to ask or answer the difficult questions also. Because then we go on to sometimes general knowledge questions, like if somebody is coming from like UP, like he says, if he's from UP, we ask them about, what are the things of interest in UP, or what are your neighboring states? Can you name 5 neighboring states? Can you name 5 neighboring states CMs? Just to understand how much that person is aware of keeping track of things. So we get to a little difficult questions a little later, after we make them a little comfortable. And then it also depends upon, we see that, okay, this is a good candidate, then we try to go a little deeper. If we feel, okay, this person will not do, then we try to just finish it off quickly.
And not very often, but sometimes it happens that when you're not able to answer one particular question, one thing is you develop a mind block for yourself, and another thing is your interviewer will keep asking you more difficult questions, which you might call it as grilling. So one thing is, did that ever happen with you, and how did you cope up with that?
I think when a student sits an interview, he sits with a particular mindset that he is going to drive an interview. Either he'll be like fully prepared, I'm going to drive an interview, I'm going to use techniques and all, or either he will not be prepared. So like I was like fully prepared with structures like star L, smart approach, all of that. I was sitting, and I know that I'm driving an interview, but suddenly an unexpected question came, like who is the minister, of this particular state. I don't know that, but like then the interviewer asked like what are the policies he's doing. I know that even I don't know the minister, how can I say about the policies he's making? So every interview, like when you're giving interview, like you have to realize that they are there to grill you, stress you, and how will you cope up with those unexpected situations? It is our duty. Like I told about like who was the minister, like what was his policy. I don't know. Like what were the things he's trying to tell. Then we start making up things. Like in India, I think the COVID just happened. So people are talking about finance, crashing of markets, another marketing trends. You try to talk about that, but I believe that the right approach there should be like I don't know. I guess that should be the answer instead of making up or jumbling up things.
And what is your expert advice on such situations? In case if you are grilling a student, what is that one thing that you want to, or how do you want the student to react, or how do you want the students to behave when you are grilling?
So one is definitely being calm, being able to understand that and listen. So a lot of times students don't listen to the question properly. So they just want to be very eager to give the answer. So we also check when we are grilling, we sometimes, before the person is able to answer, we ask another question, because we are just trying to understand, is he paying attention? And like I said, that we would prefer them to say we don't know rather than go on about and make up things, because when we ask a question, we know the answer, right? So you can't pull it over us. So unless you are able to relate it to something, it's always better to say that I'm sorry, but I'm not aware of it, or I'll need a little more time. And if they don't need time, they can always ask, can I think for 2 minutes? So instead of always being eager, a lot of times what we find is students, even before you finish the question, they start answering. So they're very eager to answer. So rather, especially if it's a difficult question, spend 30 seconds or so. Just ask that, okay, can I think about it? And then they can say that, okay, I'm sorry, but I don't think I'll be able to answer this.
Is this what turns on the grilling mood?
No, so grilling actually depends from interview to interview also. So some interviews are very, very into that, okay, we want to grill, see how much stress they can give. So because they said, okay, MBA itself is going to be a stressful course, and the students should be, if you can't take stress now, then you're not fit for the course. So grilling doesn't mean that you have to have all the answers. Grilling is that how you are able to cope up. So how you are able to be calm, still answer properly without being flustered, without being totally dejected. No. So that's what basically that's happening.
So we asked them about the preparation strategy, but you as a director of an MBA program and as a panelist for many such interviews, how do you think they should structure their preparation? And is it more about the in-depth knowledge of the topic that they have, or is it more about how they are able to articulate properly?
So articulating properly is definitely the major focus here. And when they're preparing, when they fill up the form, we have divided the form into various steps where we said, okay, you have to give a SOP about why do you want to do, what are your strengths. We also ask them their hobbies. So one thing that they should do is that whatever they are putting in the form, they should be very thorough with it. They should not put anything which they will not be able to back up, and not just back up casually or superficially. They should be able to back up in depth. So if they're writing a name of the book, they should be able to talk about the book, not just the author. So because we don't know, the panelists could have read the book themselves and then they might ask. So anything that you put in, you should be very thorough with it. The other is that start reading, like if you have a couple of months, start reading the newspaper right now, especially in the area of your interest. Plus headlines definitely in all areas, but areas of your interest, you should be thorough. So if you're saying marketing, you should know which are the top marketing firms. If you say finance, then you should know what are the finance top firms that you would like, because one question could be, okay, where do you want to be? Right? Which company would you like to go for? So you should be able to tell that, okay, these are the companies that I want to, and because I want to be in these companies, because unless you have the goal, you'll not be able to go anywhere. So that's what we, although the goals can change, once you come in and you might decide, okay, this is not what you want to do. But at that time, when you want to do MBA, there has to be some goal in mind that this is what you want to be. Why do you want to do MBA? Not just because somebody, my father has told me, or I've seen my cousin doing it, but why do you want to do it? So if you're able to tell that I want to become, or I want to be in the finance sector, then you should be able to justify, okay, what are the top 5 finance companies that you can name? Why do you want to go in there? What interests you about it? So that in-depth knowledge, definitely. So whatever you are going to answer, you should be able to back it up with thorough knowledge, not just superficial.
Thorough knowledge and examples. Makes sense, makes sense. One thing that I feel is really important for me, I would also want to know your opinion on, is body language. So how much does that, how much role does it play in terms of when you are assessing a candidate, and what aspects of body language do you notice when you're assessing a candidate?
So body language, as such, we don't put so much of importance because we know that the students are going to be nervous, and at this stage, they're not very experienced in giving interviews because a lot of them are freshers. They've just come, maybe their first interview ever. But yeah, we do expect them to be dressed properly, like I said. So that's one thing. And then, whether they are sitting in a calm manner, are they fidgeting? Sometimes people are just holding something and, doing all this. So that shows that they are nervous. So what we did is just keep your hands calm. And if you want, you can ask for a paper and pen, write something if you want to have that, do something to do, or carry something so that your hands do not move so much. But otherwise, not much, because we understand the students are going to be nervous. Not everybody is very confident.
And you guys as students, while you were gonna go for the interview, were you nervous? What was your body language like, and did you read about this thing?
So I have been a psychology student, and coming from that background, it gave me knowledge of how your gestures represent what is going in your mind and what are you feeling inside out. And for me, body language is also something which represents your intent for anything. If you are a person who is very closed in nature and who is not open to a lot of experiences, you will have a certain body language, and that will be a bad impression for the interviewer. So it is important to show that you are interested in a particular position or a particular field that you are interested in, and you have to be interactive with them. You have to build a rapport with them. It is very important. So personally, I always treat any interview as a conversation and not an interview, so that I can give my genuine opinions about everything, which could reflect my intent to be there.
What do you think?
Very important.
Very important.
It basically shows your confidence.
Okay.
If you can maintain constant eye contact with the person, you will be able to answer the questions very confidently. And I feel it is the key for the confidence that shows on your face.
And ma'am, what proportion of your assessment is current affairs? How much do you think this particular metric is important for every MBA candidate?
So in weightage category, if you see, it would be about 10% in the whole interview. But sometimes it can color the other assessments also. So somebody, maybe the panelist, it also depends upon the panelist. So sometimes we have industry people, and some of them are really into current affairs. So they say, okay, we don't want to even consider a candidate who's not aware of it. So their whole interview can get colored. So although the weightage is not that great, but it can change the perception of the whole interview, depending upon how early on the questions are asked. So normally when I start with my interviews, I don't ask much about current affairs. I start more about personality and the behavioral aspects of the person, about the teamwork, leadership. So the other panelists will have some time before they put in the current affairs thing, because not every student, especially a fresher, would be into current affairs. Because that's something I think as a country we are lacking in, that our students do not spend so much of time in being aware of what's happening in the news. They are more, and now with the social media, like the news also is consumed in a very different manner, and because of that, sometimes it doesn't retain. So people don't, because unless you read the newspaper, unless you read the in depth, it will not retain. Just having a headline flashing, 100 headlines flashing every day, it's not possible to retain. So we understand that. So we are not judging them on their current affairs, but what we are trying to understand is, does that person shows interest? Is he trying to understand what is happening around that person? Because that is something that we feel that, because we are going to train them in our MBA course, we are going to train them to be aware of and read newspaper. We are going to make it compulsory for them at that time. But we just want to see that how does a person process the information.
All right, all right. And how did you guys keep yourself relevant to such topics? And don't tell me the newspaper thing, that's everyone has been telling. So what, apart from reading newspaper daily, what did you do to keep yourself relevant and abreast of the current situations in the country?
So I personally keep track of, as ma'am mentioned, that social media is one of the biggest platform, and everyone is stick to social media. So it would be one of my suggestions as well. If you're following a lot of accounts, do always do follow few newspaper uh, pages. Like there is Mint, and there are other pages, Daily Hunt. There are other platforms as well. And I also used to keep these app installed in my phone, and the headlines pop up every time you receive a notifications. So I never used to turn off those notifications of those apps. So I was updated of the trends which are happening and of the current events which are happening.
So that even if you don't want to, subconsciously you
Yes.
get to consume them.
And I believe that creating an opinion is also like a very important thing. Like take subscriptions, take as much subscriptions as you can. Like even in the last 6 months, people when are preparing for CAT or other exams, don't prepare for general knowledge. They prepare just for the last month. Like as she shared, like install apps, you can have notifications for that. But also take subscriptions, take subscription of Mint, take subscription of Wall Street, Bloomberg. Uh, by this, you get to know about what things are happening, a detail of things, you get to know about it, and you can create an opinion about it. And if you have an opinion, it will definitely benefit you in interview. You need to have opinion.
One more strategy that I adopted was that I found reading newspaper very monotonous, the headlines of the newspaper very monotonous. So I used to skip to the editorial section. And as he mentioned that forming an opinion is very important. So in those editorial sections, you will have opinions on the recent happenings which are there in the world. And going through that will help you form an answer for the interview as well as group discussions as well. So, and you will also be able to brush up your knowledge regarding those topics and form a proper opinion.
And my last question would be, from students' point of view, what are some common mistakes that you think students tend to make during these interviews? And secondly, did you guys make any mistake, and how can one avoid these mistakes?
So, as you mentioned earlier about the under pressure situation that we face. So, in one of the interviews, I was bombarded with few of the very major questions of general awareness, and if I wasn't, I had the knowledge of the topics which they asked me, but if I wasn't able to answer the first the 2 3 questions, and I then fumbled in the other questions, succeeding questions as well. So it is important for students to stay calm during the interview, and they should take time to recollect their thoughts as well.
Exactly, like don't be in a like a flow, and try to give interviews, mock interviews, when there is a disturbance as well. You'll think of that you will follow a flow and you'll do things that way again in that way, but it will not happen. Disturbance could be by your side as well, but by the interviewer side as well. So you need to take your time, you need to be calm, and ask for like 1 minute. Can I have a sip of water? Can I write my thoughts in a piece of paper? Ask for that. It will help you. Like getting nervous, like it is the cycle. You'll get nervous, then you'll murmur, then you will stop, or like talk in the middle and say something else. You can't create a story like that. So you need to be calm. Sometimes sit back, relax. You can have 30 seconds. Ask that. It will help.
Okay. And ma'am, what according to you are some common mistakes that students tend to make during these interviews?
So one question I don't like answering is, how did I perform in the interview? See, at that time, we are not going to give you the answer or the correct answer, because we're not going to tell you whether you ace the interview or you did not ace the interview. So that is a definite no-no. The student should not ask that question, how did I perform?
And that can have a negative impact,
It
even
can
if they
have a
perform
negative.
good.
It can have a negative impact. Although no, we don't negatively mark it, but yes, it leaves a bad taste. So normally when we ask a question, and usually we do ask a question that, do you have any questions from us? So at that time the student asks that, how do I perform? So you actually wasted that question. So that time we would expect the students to ask about the college life, maybe their fit into the college, or something to do with the aspiration, which shows that yes, they are interested in our college. No, we are not. We know that we are not one of like okay, this is the only college that you have applied to. You maybe have applied, but at least at that time you should be able to show that yes, this is the college I'm interested in. I've done some research, and I need to understand this. Okay, these are my strengths. How would I be able to fit into, or what would be the avenues where I can showcase my strength like this? So these are the kind of questions we would expect the students to ask, which very few do. Very few. In fact, maybe hardly 1% of the students would ask this kind of answer in this manner. So most of the time, they would either say that we don't have any question, or they would ask that, how did I perform in the interview?
Okay. And now that we are sitting in January, most of the students are gonna be, going for MBA admissions interview. So what are your final 2 3 tips that you would want to give them for their interview so that they can, have the lasting impression?
One is definitely be true to yourself. So think that, why do you want to go for the interview? Why do you want to apply for MBA? Come up with a reason. It may be that okay, maybe some you have under family pressure or other, but still try to come up with a reason which you can justify, that why would you want to do the MBA for. Other is that whatever you are mentioning in your form, back it up with solid proof. So if somebody says I'm good at leadership, then you have to have proof of it. You have to have some indication. So work on it. Work on trying to think of things from your past where you can highlight, which you can substantiate your comment. So everything that you should be able to say, you should be able to substantiate with some experience. And if it's a fresher, then your college experience or your personal experience also can happen there. If you're professional, then definitely from your professional experience. You can mention, substantiate if you dealt with the challenge, dealt with the team as a leader.
No, I think these pieces of advice kindly sums it all up what we discussed today in the conversation. Cool. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Achal. Thank you, Virat. And it was lovely talking to you guys. And hopefully students will learn a lot and they'll be prepared well now after listening to us. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.